Rolling.
All right. This is another series or installment. The Meet the Onslaught, and we're interviewing me this week.
And Randy, why are you dressed up?
This is our Christmas show, and the past couple of years we've done this. We've joked around. I mean, matter of fact, you guys may have even done this even before I joined up. But there's always a joke, about Satan Claus, and I thought it would kind of be fun to bring Satan Claus to the show this year in some strange manner. So Satan Claus has technically possessed me tonight.
Ah, all right.
So this is he's more of a spirit than anything, and this is how he gets around. It could be somebody else next year.
This is true. So, for those of you who don't know, this is Randy Smith, also known as the Metal Wolf.
Yep.
How long have you been on the show, Randy?
I first hooked up, and it was kind of, for all I knew at the time, it could have been a one-off, but this came about because I was at an Ultimate Wrestling event the day after Halloween. They had encouraged people to come in their Halloween costumes, and I had this awesome werewolf get-up. If you listen to the show and seen the videos, you know what I mean. I wore it that night, and it actually went over really well. I didn't actually win anything, but, it's like I had kids coming on my lap wanting their pictures taken. The wrestlers got into it, and it was fun. And about a week and a half after that, a mutual friend of ours, Steve Papa Giorgio, happened to mention that Joe wanted me on the show, and you guys wanted me to come on as the Wolf, and I'm like, yeah, sure, what the hell? It was a goofy enough thing, and it was like, yeah, I'm into it. Sure, it could be fun. And it was, and at first we kind of played it up that we do it around the full moon if it coincided, and it worked out nice that way. And by the following June, I think it was like the late part of June 2009, I started coming and hanging out as a regular, and it's been a blast.
Very cool. Well, you kind of answered how you hooked up with us, so moving on to the next question here. Favorite metal subgenre?
Oh, I'm more of I'm very partial to like old 80s school, old school, like some of the 80s power metal, but even, like the early stuff, Sabbath and Ted Nugent, Oyster Cult. A lot of the 70s stuff was really good. I mean, what I listen to still to this day, though, is a lot of the 80s stuff. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I find myself going back between the old and new stuff, too. But more so lately with the old stuff. Favorite bands? You kind of addressed that a little bit, right?
Well, yeah, for me it's kind of like a holy trinity of rock. It's like, for me, Kiss, Sabbath, and AC/DC is personally my favorite band ever. But, I mean, it's like, I got into metal pretty much through my dad's Deep Purple collection. He brought home Machine Head, and hearing Highway Star, stuff like Smoke on the Water, that whole album just left a huge impact. And a couple of years after that, hearing Black Diamond at school when I was in 3rd grade by Kiss. I think part of the reason where it's like I might seem a little vague about something sometimes. I came into a lot of bands later than other people. I would hear Aerosmith on the radio, not know who they were. I'd be like, hey, this is pretty good. Never knew till years later it was, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. My head was so far up Kiss's ass for a good 3 years. And then I started gradually, Ted Nugent, Foreigner, stuff like that. Cheap Trick to a lesser degree. I've always been very much into the hard rock stuff. Metal, I think my first real dose of heavy metal had to have been Sabbath. And I mean, that was just a love affair from the first, picked up a copy of Paranoid. To be perfectly honest, actually, I got into Ozzy before I got into Sabbath, so it's like, because I remember 94 Rock out of Syracuse used to play Blizzard of Oz stuff constantly, Crazy Train. So I think it was actually that got me to go back to check out Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, from there, I mean, like, it happens with a lot of people. Things snowball. You discover a couple bands, and you discover more, and you discover more, and next thing you know, it's like, I can literally say I love bands for pretty much any subgenre.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some subgenres I don't care for as much as others. I've never been a huge death metal fan, but at the same time, there are death metal bands that I love.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's like I said, the old school power metal, for me, it's always been, and thrash is great too.
Yeah.
And just, straight up hard rock, power metal, thrash, that's what keeps me going mostly.
Now, you've seen a lot of live shows, probably even more so in the last couple of years.
I have seen last year, and I think this year I've been to more than even last year. Yeah, it's been insane. A lot of good stuff.
What's been your favorite?
My personal favorite, for me right now, it is a toss-up. Kiss and Rush are the two best concerts I've ever been to. Kiss on the Psycho Circus tour, that was 1998 in Rochester, Blue Cross Arena.
It was like Thanksgiving weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 2 days after Thanksgiving. Yep.
Yeah, I was at that show.
Econoline Crush opened that show, and personally, they were okay, not my thing. Kind of, too new metal-ish for me, or whatever you call it. They were kind of hard to define.
Yeah.
Rush, I saw them on Vapor Trails, once again, Blue Cross Arena.
Mm-hmm.
Blew my mind. I'd been wanting to see them for years, and I was glad that I was able to pull that one off.
I saw them on that tour also, but it was the Darien Lake show.
Darien Lake show, yep. But, oh yeah, Kiss and Rush, definitely. Metallica's close third.
Yeah, Metallica was my first show ever, and that just that was a great show.
See, my first show was Ozzy with Motley Crue.
Sweet.
Bark at the Moon. Motley was out for Shout at the Devil. Wasted opened that show. That was an insane. Anybody who's heard anything about that tour knows exactly how crazy things were.
Going back to the subgenre question, or favorite band, you mentioned that your favorite band's AC/DC.
Absolutely.
Bon or Brian?
I gotta go Bon. I love Brian Johnson, don't get me wrong, but I think the music that they made with Bon was better. I don't know.
I agree with that.
There's just...
Definitely agree with that.
I think because when they had Brian, I mean, pretty much, because even with the Highway to Hell album, everything was starting, they were working with Mutt Lange, I believe, produced that.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure. And, I mean, the production, not to say good production's a bad thing, but the earlier stuff with Bon was just so much, there was more rawness, more aggression, just more balls out rock.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, not to say they suck by any means with Brian Johnson, but
yeah.
I have to give the edge to Bon. Absolutely.
And last question here. Craziest moment for you that was on the show?
Craziest moment for... Every week is a crazy moment. To be
this is true.
honest, it's almost impossible for me to pick out one because, to be perfectly... I think some of the craziest moments I've experienced have pretty much been my own because, it's like people bring up the Mankini thing, and I'm here to tell you right now, I had no idea what I was going to do that night. I wore that Mankini mainly because I had these... It was no pants day. I wanted to wear my AC/DC boxers, but I didn't want anything flopping out as we were running around and getting crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
So the Mankini was actually there for a little extra protection.
Mm-hmm.
And I was preparing to introduce a new character that night, which we kind of fell flat in the weeks afterward, but Olaf, the Viking, because I'd been suffering so much, like head trauma, brain damage, that's where I wanted the second personality to come in. That was Olaf's premiere. So here I am getting ready to have, getting the Viking helmet on and the fake shield and the sword, and I'm like, taking the shirt off, and I'm like, something, screw it. We're going all out. Off came the boxers. Me, mankini, pair of socks, shield, helmet, sword, and insanity ensued, and that's...
Yeah, the look on everybody's face during that video when you came out.
sheer terror.
Classic, man. I mean, disturbing, but classic at the same time.
But, it's like, the beatings. If you want to, one of my favorite moments, I'll say this right now. The night we had Mean Mike on with all the roller derby girls.
Was that when Cryptic was here too?
No, Cryptic wasn't here that night. But this was the night like Lorelei was on, Steel Candy, Karma, Shock and Audrey.
Oh, that was like the second time that they had come up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like the second time they had come up. Audrey had been up before, and one of the other girls. But this is the first time that Karma had come up, and like I said, Steel Candy and Lethal Lorelei. Mean Mike beat the snot out of Jeffy, and the girls were jumping on him.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, because every time he turned around, Jeffy was getting chopped and falling into the stack of records that were all boxed up. And that's a fun video to go back and watch. That's
it goes back a few years now.
That tonight before I go to bed.
It's like what, 2009 or something?
That was 2009, yeah. It was like August, a couple of years ago. That was a good night.
Derby girls are always fun to have up there.
Derby girls are always fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, all right, that's about it for the questions.
Cool.
All right, that wraps this one up.
Alrighty.